Of course, because we get so wrapped up in the nobility of providing and protecting, you forget to love them sometimes, and that's one of the biggest lessons that I've learned where I tell people. So I'll give you an example, Scott. I've spoken at lots of different events. My wife and I have done different workshops, and we'll be in some pretty influential rooms, EO, IPO, other private mentoring groups. And I'll say, how many of you can, name the day and time that you meet with your CFO? All the hands go up, Thursday, 9 a.m. But when do you meet with your sales team? Okay, name the day and time each week you have a date with your spouse. And I'm telling you, Scott, less than 10% of the hands go up in the room. And I'm going, guys, this is it. You cannot sprint the whole way. You got to carve out the time because your spouse, your children, they're your most important clients, key investors, team members, whatever you want to call them through that entrepreneurial, lens that we have, work with it. But just that one thing, when I see someone, they're like, what do you suggest? I said, set a date once a week, same bat time, same bat channel, and just do it without the kids, without guilt, and that I've seen that save more marriages than I can tell you, because when people go, "Oh, it's feeling raw," and I say, "When was the last time you had a date?" "Oh, I don't know, 9, 10 months ago." I'm going, "Holy cow, imagine if you didn't show up for work 9, 10 months. Where would your business be?" So, yeah, just those little things.
Yeah, it's funny, you can realize you haven't talked to a particular employee in a certain amount of time and how they start to separate if they don't feel connected. But so many people don't feel that way about their own families or their own spouses, and they're not aware of it. My wife and I learned we had the second child, again, something I talk about often on the show. We had our second child and, we're missing each other, like it's just go I got the oldest, I'm taking him everywhere. The youngest is kind of taking up all the time, and we go on our first vacation, in the Caribbean. We're on a ferry to Tortola, and my wife looks at me and, as we head to Tortola, she goes, "This is our ROM." And I said, "I don't know what that is, but it sounds amazing." And she goes, "No, it's to rekindle our marriage week. We just gotta get back to basics." And I remember thinking, "That's
Yeah,
genius,"
it is.
to the point where she gave me that recipe, and for the next, you know, 15 plus years, 16 years of our life, we've done a ROM weekend every 6 months or sometimes quarterly. Sometimes you get to a point where you just know you need it and you separate because you gotta get back on the same page to remember that we don't just love each other, we actually like each other.
That
And
absolutely.
that's
Yeah,
huge.
the obligation of love, if you can't also say you're friends, my wife and I talk about that. It's not that only we're love, we really like each other. We're like really good friends, and it both are important. And kudos to you, Scott, because when you say that, when you're doing that often, there's a big saying we have whenever we're teaching families, and that's so many people out there are choking on content and starving for execution. They're choking on content. They're always trying to just get something down and read something more, but they're not actually applying it. And I say, stop reading so much and start applying some of what you are. Get some clear relationship advice and put it to work. Don't try to stack on the next thing and that falls and then that does it. There's one thing that you've done, and that's probably more powerful than any other 10, 12 books that you could read.
I think, to your point, for the people that take in all the content, they're I think it's scary to execute. I think, it's not just try it either. It's just do it. And what we noticed about these weeks and the weekends, it took us probably a year or 2 to realize how impactful they were. We were just going through the motions, and I was forcing it for the reasons of just getting my wife one-on-one because it's hard to find that time. And I knew how imperative that was, but it's my equilibrium as a high intense entrepreneur, who's constantly driving towards the I love building. I love that experience. I needed that fallback, that relaxation, that balance. And without that connection, it's very difficult to get there. So what we were doing was actually better for business than any other thing we could have been doing because the business suffers when the family suffers.
100%. 100%. Your fuel is low in the tank. I see the most successful people I see and look the healthiest and vibrant. They've done something like you've just done. They're not running on fumes. And sometimes even when, things are good at home, you're running on fumes. Could you imagine if you weren't doing those weekends with your wife when you were going through the business struggles or, the big uncertainties of selling the business? I mean, that you're working with half a tank there, and that doesn't serve.
No, you definitely have to go outside of yourself and, have to have a bigger why and understand that by prioritizing relationships, you're going through life with the prioritization of relationships is a much better path than prioritizing transactions. And I think a lot of people actually mix that up. Yeah, I know you probably go into rooms, especially as an entrepreneur and building the real estate portfolio and platform that you have, where you're a relationship individual. That's how you've gotten where you're at. That's why you focus on your family the way that you do. You can smell people that just want a transaction out of you in like 30 seconds. And you don't want to work with those people. You don't want to build something with them. You want to build with people that are actually doing the same things you're doing at home because you know they're less likely to call you at some ungodly hour of the day to tell you about something that doesn't matter because it's just the way that that kind of world works on a regular
I
basis.
agree. Yeah, I think it's called value-based decision making. When I was always told, it's funny, Scott. I was told when I've always been a real estate investor when I started doing these, "What is this? You're working with entrepreneur families? That's just odd." Well, you can only do one or the other, and that's what I was told all the time. And what I found, and my wife is always like, "Oh, didn't I say that like 100 times?" I would do a family talk, just pure family talk, just giving the best value out I think I can, and all of a sudden I'd gain some real estate investment partners out of it. And I'm going, that was not the goal at all. Like there was not a single mention. And there'd just be these weird overlaps. But I think when you have deep shared values, that's also where trust can be built quicker. And, I feel more comfortable when I see someone who prioritizes their family. Uh, because maybe this is wrong, but I say if they treat their family that terribly, how are they going to treat me in this deal?
Yeah, it's 100% true. How do you see with building this real estate business, which you built to have more time with your family, if I understand your story correct. It was you've always been in the business, but the way that you built the latest iteration of the business, which has been growing for many years now, was designed to give you that time back. And how do you see the family being a part of that business into the future? Is there something that you've laid as a framework at all? Is it something that the kids know it's an open opportunity if it presents itself?
From a very early age, Scott saw absolute disaster around addiction and forcing children into the family business. And it's way too long of a story, but I saw it very clearly, pretty close to home. And I didn't wanna get wrapped up on that. I mean, my wife and I right now for the first time are watching Yellowstone, and I'm just like, "Gosh," I mean, the early iterations, if you're a watcher of it, I'm like, "Gosh, they seem like such good people." I'm like, "I think John Dutton's a horrible father." I just what the and maybe that's judgmental, but I wanted to make sure my kids didn't wanna go into real estate investing. So what I actually did, Scott, I don't know if this was curiosity, I was like, "Don't go into my business, don't work as hard as me. You don't have to retire me." I had to retire my parents. They never made a lot of money. There were certain pressures put on me and my wife, self-inflicted. I said, "Your life is different. You don't have to do that. Do what you want to do. Don't worry what I want. What do you want?" That's where the magic is. I'm not choosing the path. You choose your own path. You'll run out of steam if I choose it. And just by doing that, guess what? One of them has a successful charter fishing business, he loves it, and he's wanting to invest in real estate on the side, and he's doing it. The other one had a really bad car accident at 17, had a full recovery, was so touched by the experience, he went in right at 18 to fire EMT school. He's now a local fireman EMT, and he wants to do real estate on the side. I'm like, "Guys, you know how happy that makes me? You didn't have to go all in, like, I could care less if you do real estate or something else." They're very entrepreneurial, but they found something completely different. And they know the way that it's set up. And that's another thing, too. I think that's important, Scott. Our real estate investments, what I've always told my children is I'd love to pass them down to you, but our real estate, all of our investments in businesses are tied to core values. And what I've tried to teach, because again, I've learned of this scary word entitlement, terrifying word for first generation wealth people like us, is, I will try to do everything I can to give you opportunities to choose your own path and support that path, but I will not do the push-ups for you, and we're tied to certain core values. So again, the easiest one is addiction. I've watched too much addiction too close to us, where enabling is a very, very dangerous thing to do. So I've told them, for example, we're tied to sobriety. It's one of our core values. I love to have a glass of wine with my wife too, but we are tied to sobriety. And if you chose to take a path of addiction, like I've watched other entrepreneurial friends do, I will love you. I'll try to support you, but just know you will get nothing. And some people are like, "You just told me." Of course, I love them too much. I will not fund a life of addiction, especially if I'm going to leave. And just that's an example of core values. And I think teaching my sons, we have, everyone has the sex talk, the birds and the bees. Around that same age, we had the money talk, and we just laid out our financials. We explained what's gone wrong, what's gone right, how I almost lost it all in '08, what we did to make it back. And then they sat in on accounting meetings with us for years. So we tried to have that money talk with them along with the sex talk because it's so important. So I don't know if I just digress too much there, but this is something I
No, no,
get
I
super
get it
excited.
completely. I get it completely. I mean, ultimately, in my world, I built a business for 20 years, and I sold the business. And my 18-year-old son, his senior year, I was selling the business. We had this conversation. He goes, Dad, I have no idea if I'd wanna go into that business, but do you ever think that you should have kept it so that we had it as a family type of connection? I said, "No. I learned everything I needed to learn, and it's run its path, and here's what I'm doing now. Now what I'm doing is leveling up for us so we can grow together. You wanna build something, I'll help you build something. We'll build it completely separately." This summer, I told him, I said, "You gotta have a summer job when you come home." He plays soccer. He's got very little time, and he started doing these TikTok lives and these conversations on TikTok, and he's making pretty decent money on a regular basis. He goes, "Dad, if I do the TikTok lives and I do this," and he's laid out a plan. I said, "Here's the thing. I don't care how you do it. I don't care what if you love what you're doing, I got your back. But there will be a plan associated with this. Not just going to be you want to do it when you want to do it. There's going to be a results and there's going to be a connection because any business has to have some parameters and accountability to it. And so it's not going to be just a hobby. A hobby is completely different. And I'm not going to support hobby businesses. I'm going to support unless you want to go do something after you're already earning a full living. And I actually am completely aligned with that. I mean, the founding father said, "We are soldiers, so our children can be teachers, so their children can be artists." And it's perfect. It's the exact thing we aim for. But outside of that, most generations of artists have to become soldiers again because they maybe missed a little bit of that impact that the first generation was trying to make. So what we're trying to do is kind of level them up, but not forget where we came from either, and just allow them to be a part. If you like clips like this, I have a similar clip here. And if you want to watch the full video, click here.